us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions so that we always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. You are all welcome to today's sitting. I do apologize for the late commencement of today's sitting. It is due to the effort of the states to rebuild and return to the old status of the property destroyed and vandalized by hoodlums during EndSARS, which we have the Vice President, the Speaker of National Assembly, distinguished senators from Abuja with us, and His Excellency, Mr. Governor, and his deputy. So we just finished from Adeyemi Bello. Let us go through the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 10th November 2020. Page 246, 247. Yeah, Honorable Iwala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me quickly call our attention to one omission that we have here. That's recognition of dignitaries, sir. The last name there has no surname, which is Obakamila Oyediji Isiba. Isiba is missing there, sir. Then secondly, Cardinal James Omolaja Odumbaku's name is not written here, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
249, 250. I have examined the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 10 November 2020 and approval here granted. Any message from the Governor?
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished Honorable Member, there is no message from the Governor.
Any other announcement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, there is none.
Petition?
None, sir.
Matter of urgent public importance on personal explanations. Majority in brief, please.
Thank you, sir. I just consider it important to inform this House that we lost a former clerk of this House in person of Chief Lamidi Afolabi Gbadamoshi, who was clerk between 1998 and 2002. He died at the age of 80 years and he has since been buried in his hometown, Ikorodu. He was survived by children and his wife. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority, I didn't get the import of your message.
said we lost a former clerk of this house, Chief Afolabi Badamoshi, who was clerk of the house between 1998 and 2002. He has since been buried. I just feel since he's the former clerk of the house, it's important that I inform the house.
Thank you for the information. Ms. So rest in peace. Mr. Clark, kindly do a letter to the condolence letter to the family of the deceased, and being a former clerk, I think it's necessary to rise and observe a minute's silence in honor of the deceased. Distinguished colleagues, please kindly rise for 1 minute's silence in honor of the former clerk. May his soul rise in perfect peace. Reports? None. Yeah, business of the day, laying of reports. Honorable Akonde.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished honorable members, I'm here this afternoon to lay a report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, Public Petitions, and LASIEC on a bill for a law to provide for the prohibition of unlawful societies and cultism in Lagos State and for connected purposes. I so lead.
Yeah, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Appropriation Bill 2021 be read for the second time. I so move.
Honorable Tijani.
Thank you, right, Honorable Speaker. I like to second the motion as much.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Those against no, the ayes have it. Mr. Clark.
Right Honorable Speaker, sir. Distinguished honorable members, it is my honor to read for the second time a bill for a law to authorize the issue and appropriation of 451,750,101,951 naira from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for Recurrent Expenditure and 703,272,311,055 naira from the Development Revenue Fund for Capital Expenditure, thereby totaling a budget size of 1,155,022,413,600 naira for the year ending 31st December 2021. Thank you, sir.
I hope it's not contagious. So if it is, you can excuse us. Yeah, Honorable Shaw.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, honorable colleagues. The 2021 budget is arrived, and glory be to God, it has met us well, and we put it that way. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend you that the review of the year 2020 budget, which took place a couple of months back, had been very instrumental to the performance that was read out on this floor with respect to the 2020 budget by the governor. If he had not done that review, the performance would have been something else. We reviewed the budget from 920 billion down to, sorry, from 1.169 trillion down to 920 billion. And in that review, 10% recurrent was reduced and 24% capital was also reduced. But the beauty was that when we were reducing the capital, half of the 24, which is 12%, which is 50% of that entire 24, was reduced vis-a-vis loans. Loan repayments, so loans were rescheduled, loans were restructured, which the governor mentioned, took interest rate down from 20% to 12%, and that was how we were able to achieve that feat. We were also told that the revenue performed 98%, recurrent performed 83%, and capital performed 71% as of September. That's prorated as of September this year. We must commend the governor for the various achievements he had railed out the other day in finance, health, education, transport, agri, the entire team agenda as it was put. The year 2021 budget proposal, christened Budget of Rekindled Hope. This, well, we are politicians, we are merchants of hope, so this speaks to it. I'm happy that Mr. Governor mentioned job creation for the youth in areas of construction, technology, agriculture, and security. Security using our neighborhood safety corps. Also, he mentioned security, which is very paramount, and he mentioned that neighborhood safety corps will also complement what the police is doing by increasing their strength and training them, and also requested that the private sector should also contribute to security within our society. Also, they talked about the youth engagement, which is getting our youth to move away from cybercrime and all other kind of crimes, and we should engage them so that we can increase the trust level within our community. Mr. Speaker, the macroeconomic figures that were used for this budget, we have the oil production at 1.86 million barrels per day, oil price at $40 per day, per barrel, $40 per barrel. Exchange rate is put at 379 naira per dollar, inflation at 11.95%, GDP growth of the country at 3%, GDP of Lagos is put at 32 billion naira for year 2021, while our debt profile is hovering around 1 trillion naira. Sectorially, if we see what was given, let me just mention a few sectors. Transport got 7.9%, infrastructure works got 15%, environment got 4.18%, health got 10%, education got 12%. Some key points to note in this budget. The loan repayment for the year 2021 is put at 131 billion. Total revenue is put at 962 billion. Total IGR is put at 795 billion. Federal transfers at 166. Recurrent expenditure, debt and non-debt at 451 billion. Total capital expenditure, 703 billion. Total budget size, 1,155 billion. Deficit funding source is put at 192 billion. Mr. Speaker, I have a few observations I would like to quickly mention here. The counterpart fund for the past 3 years is next to zero. Counterpart funding has always been a freebie for government to access grants so that they can show up the available funds for the budget. We know that during pandemic, we should be glad that we've survived this pandemic with the budget that has been presented. During pandemic, government spend their way out of pandemics, crisis. But we have to also be realistic in what we budget as a state. So this counterpart fund should be looked at. Personnel costs, the figures supplied by a staff, year in, year out, we've complained about this. The figures don't tally. We have, in some cases, they put in pension and gratuity at 16 billion naira for teaching service and civil service. That's not possible. They're putting pensions and gratuity for judiciary as at 2020 at 18 billion September. That's not possible. They put neighborhood safety corps, while the governor is talking about increasing the staff strength. We are putting a personnel cost. This year is 2.8 billion. Next year you're putting at 549 million. I believe these are typographical cuts across health, cuts across tertiary institutions, and so on and so forth. The external loans of the state, which in the summary position of the budget submitted, is put at about 37 billion naira. Looking through the schedule of loans, external loans, we have 72 billion naira. So this has to be reconciled as well. Also, we have loans going to Lamata to the tune of 31 billion naira. Meanwhile, just about within this a month thereabout, we approved the sum of 150-something billion naira for Lamata. So we need to be sure of exactly what they need to use this money for. Our investment income over the years has been hovering 2019 1.1 billion, 2019 nil, 2020 we have less than 300 million naira. And we've invested billions of naira in these ventures that are giving us this return on investment. This has to be looked at. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, there's some figures that I think needs reconciliation here. Our revenue performed as at September at 98%. Yet we have areas of the economy that are very important, that the amount of capital expenditure spent on them, even though the capital expenditure is put at 71%, does not jive. Health has capital expenditure of 25 billion, yet only 3.8 billion naira had been achieved as of September. Yet we say we did 71% of the capital. This is just 20% prorated. Education has 40% prorated. Housing, community amenities has 39% prorated. Environment has 63% prorated. Works are done fine, 71%, that's spot on. These figures don't really jive with what we're expecting to see. Also, revenue generating agencies are the ones that bring these monies in. And we believe that these agencies need to be properly funded for us to be able to achieve the revenue projections that we have. That is even if it's possible within the climate that we have right now. You have LIRS, which has capital budget of 1 billion naira, has assessed only 174 million naira, which is 23% in the last 9 months of this budget. And the revenue house that's being reconstructed for them or rehabilitated, only 39% of that money has been provided. Neighborhood Safety Corps, which has 398 million naira, only got 16 million naira of the capital expenditure, which is 5%. Industrial hub that is supposed to create jobs, innovation and creativity, nil capital. Last part that is supposed to generate over 15 billion naira, only got 12% of their capital expenditure. I can continue to reel out all these figures, but Mr. Speaker, my suggestion is that we need to look at this budget critically, and I suggest that when it gets to committee members will ensure that revenues that are projected have empirical backing and documentation for them. Also, all revenue generating agencies, MDAs as the case may be, must be fully supported with appropriate revenue. Then subvented parastatals should, over time, next 2-3 years, we should ensure they run efficiently so that subvention will not keep going into investment and into the bodies that are expected to return investment to the state. Then we should also look at possibility of outsourcing some of these collections. Lagos can be very big, but need as many hands as possible. Then improve coverage of PPP within our system so that they can also bring in needed funds with respect to capital expenditure within the state. Then reduction of our overheads is something that is very key so that we can fit into our slim budget. However, Mr. Speaker, we need to do a realistic budget. Mr. Speaker, if we look at the budget trend within our climb, or should I say within the state, over the last 3 years, let me say 2019, 2020, our budget performance has hovered around 800 billion thereabout. We started this 1 trillion naira budget in 2018, I believe. Yes, we started in 2018. That was the first time we started the 1 trillion naira budget, and we've never been able to achieve it. In 2019, we came down to 873 billion. We still didn't make it. In 2020, we had 1.168 trillion. We still haven't made it. The actual budget size we have in 2018 is 682 billion. In 2019, is 707 billion. And in 2020, we're still on 528 billion as at September. Mr. Speaker, I think we should look at this budget and bring it within range of something that we can achieve. If we do an 800 billion naira budget, Mr. Speaker, we will still have practically the same amount we have been spending on capital expenditure over the last 3 years, which hovers around 280, 270 billion. We cut down a bit of the overhead. The personnel cost will still remain the same. That is not touched at all, but we will be able to have a trim budget. If the state makes more than 800 billion naira, they will come back for a supplementary budget, and I'm sure this House is ready to give them. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I look forward to all the MDAs coming around to defend their budget, and also I pray that Mr. Speaker will commit this budget to the relevant committees to ensure proper scrutiny. Thank you very much for your time.
Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, the budget, as described by the governor as to rekindle hope, I think there are some hopes there for the youth if it is well implemented, because we talk about internship scheme, we talk about vocational centers to be improved on so that probably those that are left out of school can go in there and learn skills, which will be very, very germane and important to the development of Lagos State. We talk about employment trust, which is going to give grants to some youths that have entrepreneurial skill, which obviously is going to take many of them off the road. But Mr. Speaker, I see that this budget, in terms of revenue, is over-ambitious. Because if you're able to juxtapose what transpired in 2019, when things were normal, and the review of 2020, and like I say, I normally say that COVID is still with us. We need to be very careful. We still need to shut some companies. Some companies will not be operating optimally, and all this will affect the GDP of the state, and obviously it will affect our revenue generation because we tax profits, not losses. Mr. Speaker, I see that many of these so-called MDs deliberately increase their revenue base so that they can have more money going into their budget allocation. But the problem with this is basically has to do with the fact that if at the end of the day they cannot meet their revenue target, bulk of the money will go to overhead to the detriment of capital expenditure. I can see that, and the committee needs to do a lot of job on that so that we could not fall into the same temptation that transpired in 2019 and 2020 that necessitated what I call reordering. Mr. Speaker, a chunk of the money is going to economic affairs. This is going to be about 29.88%. Infrastructure is next to it, about 14.9%. I know education had prime of place in this budget, and it's good for us. Many of our schools will be well punished. Many of those dilapidated and forgotten schools will have a place, because I saw in the breakdown that many schools will be furnished, many schools will be rehabilitated, and that is good for our children. It takes off our children from the roads, and they'll be able to be well engaged and admitted. Ditto health. We know that, thank God that, Mr. Speaker, thank you for supporting us during COVID-19. I think we see about 10 billion for that. But I believe 20 billion, yes, 20 billion for that. But I believe that we still need to do more in terms of being proactive when it comes to issues that borders on pandemic like this. So I think chunk of money went to health. which accounted for about 9.78. Having said that, sir, Mr. Speaker, I was wondering when Okobaba will be resettled. I'm wondering when will my 12 go to Imota? I'm wondering how do we now make it possible for Computer Village to go to Kantuaga? This has been Katangwa, I think it's like Hausa word. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to look at this so that it will not be endless pit to siphon money. Mr. Speaker, it's a good budget to some extent, but the size, like Honorable Ishaf said, we have to use empirical facts to determine the size of our budget, not just guesswork. Budget is supposed to be what I call scientific guess, not just normal guess. So I believe and I have the conviction that if you look at it very well, to avert reordering, I think it becomes imperative for us to have a budget size that is implementable. Thank you.
Honorable Tobo.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, my distinguished colleagues. Well, going by the presentation of the governor and the submission of the Chairman's Committee on Economic Planning, one can see that the government seems to have a very good budget that will take care of human capital development in our states and youth employment and security as well. When you look at the allocation made in the specific terms, look at the funds allocated for transportation and knowing fully what our people are facing on the road, and with the wanton destruction that happened during the HENSAS protest, when we see that the government seems to mean well for the people and bringing life back to our commuters. Then when you look at works and infrastructure, the fund allocated to maintain our roads, to complete the ongoing roads, and to develop the bad road along the Lekki-Ajah axis, when we discover that the government meant well to help the people. And especially when you look at what was, I mark for recreation, culture, and religions. That shows the cultural heritage, our cultural value is going to be promoted by this budget. And the religious group, too, we have a say. But, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I want to observe that, in my own opinion, looking at what is going on in the state, enough funds were not provided for security, knowing fully that security of life and property is very, very important. And with the way situations are going in this country, we are like on our own, where we were saying we need a state police. And where state police is not given to us, the neighborhood security corps that we have must be fortified so that they will be able to stand the test of time. And Mr. Speaker, when you look at the revenue base, the proposed revenue base, when you compare to what happened last year, I discovered that revenue drive the budget. Adequate provisions are not being made in this budget to generate this fund. So if they are proposing this 1.155 trillion budget, and the revenue projection cannot carry it, going by what we observed in the past, that shows that the fund that comes in will be allocated to a priority project of the executive, not necessarily what is in the budget. So that's what normally brings about reordering. So I'm of the opinion, sir, that with what the chairman advised us, that we should look at a more realistic budget where the revenue will be able to carry the expenditure. That's my opinion, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Well, I want to actually adopt the position of Honorable Ishao and Honorable Ulowo on the area of the premises, the budget was based, the budget proposal was based. Rather, we also look critically into the aspect of the revenue, which is the bedrock of this proposed budget, because the total money expected to be spent for 2021 proposed budget, 82% is being expected from the IGR, 82%. And when I look at the total figure of the IGR for 2021 proposed, you know, it's about 732 billion plus. And for the proposed one in the reverse budget of 2020, we had 461,736 billion. So, and what we're able to actually be referred to as our actual for the year under review, that is 2020, is 310,968 billion, which is really far from what we are expecting for this 2021. You look at the budget for the revenue, yes, which actually determine what we're going to spend for 2021. It looks very unrealistic. And you look at the financing gap that they are proposed for this year, for this 2021 proposed budget, it's about 192 billion plus, right? Consider what happened in the year under review of about 108 billion, but we've not been able to achieve much in that direction as well in the year under review. Looking at the whole thing, based on what Honorable Olowo said, the effect of the COVID-19 on the economy is still very much with us. And most of the industries and all the business enterprise, they are just still crawling. And they're still going to crawl into 2021. To really make any break-even point in the year 2021 will be very difficult, considering various governmental assets that was damaged, you know, destroyed in all these last protests we had, you know, and this also going to have serious effect on the business activities, you know, and when we look at all these things together, we look at the budget size, like being put very over-ambitious, and look at the trend analysis as well. We've not been able to work in the region of $1 trillion budget size, and I will still want the Committee on Appropriation to look critically at all the submission of the MDAs, because there is need for total transparency for us even to be able to work on their books, so that we can be able to move to something that is realistic and something that, you know, if they're coming with a budget surplus and they come for the additional budget size in the course of the year, that will be a good one that will be doing reordering each year. So I feel that we should allow the committee to look into the books, and they should look at it critically and come up with something that is attainable and achievable under the budget proposed for 2021. Thank you.
Honorable Jimo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to add my voice to the Appropriation Bill 2021. Well, for me, the budget is a proposal and it's a projection. Either it's in trillions or it's in millions. I think it's or in billions. It's still a projection that we can work within the framework of whatever is submitted. But it's left for the Standing Committee of the House, the Appropriation Committee to look at it. Adequate provisions are made for youth development, education, health, security, including works. But me looking at the omnibus, I also discovered that what was made for works was not even sufficient to cover some of the abandoned projects that have been in the state for some time. And I think it's when we titled a budget of I think it's about rebirth. It's about discovering something that is not. So I think it should cover some of the abandoned. I think we should also preoccupy ourselves with some of the abandoned projects more than generating a new project for the state. So in this light, I feel strongly that if eventually committed into appropriate committee, all these areas should be looked into, the issue of abandoned, especially the abandoned World Bank project and Lagos Metropolitan Development project, which we are clear that the World Bank is not coming back to implement or complete some of the projects that have been abandoned. Thank you.
Lastly, Honorable Jude.
Good afternoon, my Speaker, my dear colleagues. I also want to add my voice on this budget proposal for 2021. Term budget of rekindle hope. Well, like rightly observed, sir, it's a proposal. And we all believe that when you have a proposal, it's either here or there. This time this year, when we were talking about that of 2020, we never knew COVID-19 will come into existence. Now we are here. COVID-19, like rightly mentioned by others, are still here. However, sir, I want to just point out few issues. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have already said, but few issues concerning the deficit finance aspect. If you look at your page, one of the booklet I'm having, under our revised budget of 2020, the second page, you have a figure here representing internal loan, which is 73 billion plus. In 2021 proposal, it has reduced to 55 billion plus. So I need the chairman and the committee to find out, is it a reconcilable issue, or is it a new proposal, or maybe, or does it mean that they have paid part of this money from 2020 going to the proposal for 2021? So for me, that's the risk aspect. And when you look at the deficit, we'll continue to say this. Why are we increasing our deficit? But though for 2021, for me, it's a little bit reasonable. I'm hopeful anyway. I don't want to be clouded by negativity. I'm believing that we would do the needful and support the budget. When the MDAs and the ministry comes, maybe proper explanation will be given to us. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all for your observations. Why I agree with you that the budget is a proposal and at the same time a projection, but it should not be a frivolous one, because it must be couched in such manner that it can actually pursue and get its targets annually. It's not something that must come without hope. The hope must be there that behind the projection there is impediments to meet up with whatever the content of the budget is. And at the same time, I still want to caution us that we should not jump into conclusion about the provisions until we hear from the MDAs, whatever strategy they have behind, to put in place to generate this fund we are talking about, not until we into their own opinion and provisions that they put in place to drive the revenue generation. It is then that we can now conclude. I'm conscious of the fact that there's issue of inflation, there's unemployment, which COVID and the NSAS both have added to complicate the rates of the inflation and unemployment. And I think the budget should take a shape of a palliative in which smiles can be put on the faces of our people, and it must be a relief package, because looking at those who have suffered one loss or the other during the NSAS, and those whose COVID has actually attacked their businesses and also, these are still something that's still ongoing, though it will definitely affect the size of revenue generation in the state. But there's need for us to give them chance to hear from them to see how they intend to pursue the amount being put as a target for the revenue of the of this. But all in all, the committee should look at areas where we can be of help, to the people generally, considering the situation in which the nation, the nation is at now, also looking at the exchange rates, which is not, at least we all know it has not been very friendly up to this moment. So all this should be our point of view while addressing the budget with the MDAs. So in view of this appropriation bill 2021 is hereby committed to the Joint House Committee on Economic Planning and Finance to report back in 1 month or 1.5 months. 1 month or 1.5 months? Okay, 1.5 months. Yeah, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished. Next to the other paper is presentation of reports. But I just wish to say that after due consultation with the Chairman, House Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Public Petitions, and the legal department, I wish to move that the said report be stepped down till another time. I so move.
Honorable Makinde.
I rise to support the motion moved by Majority Leader.
All in favor say aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. The reports of the Committee on Judiciary on Unlawful Societies and Cultism Prohibition Bill 2020 is hereby stepped down. Majority Leader.
Distinguished colleagues, with the approval of the Right Honorable Speaker, I hereby move that the House adjourn till Thursday, the 19th day of instant month at 10 o'clock. I so move.
Honorable Afeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. This House stands adjourned to Thursday, 19 November 2020 at 12 noon prompts. I rise.